Good afternoon and welcome to this webinar on the naming new features in Dynamicweb version 9.4. This is the second webinar, and today we will look at the product workflows that can be set up in the PIM area of Dynamicweb. I'm your speaker of today, and all features and functionality I'm talking about is in our PIM module on our Dynamicweb all-in-one platform. The agenda for today is why do we need product workflows? How does it work in Dynamicweb? How do we set up the workflow groups and steps? And finally, how can we notify for a workflow status? Today's session I estimate for 20 minutes, so let's go on. So why product workflow? Well, most companies have a described way of handling their products, how to enrich the products, how do their products go into in the circulation or into the handling in their company. What do they have to make on the products, generate the product images, enrich them with the technical details, and also maybe translate them to different languages. In the organization, at the companies, there are typically different people involved in the different processes. So to be able to handle these different steps or different processes, you will need a workflow system, a workflow setup, so the users can see what they have to do. Maybe the technical engineer, they have to specify and enrich with the technical stuff. When they are finished, you'll maybe send it to the NOIA process in the root, and other people can take over and enrich and handle these things they are responsible for. So that's why the workflow system are needed in the different organizations. Of course, it's more needed in the big organizations than the small organizations, but basically workflow handling and the processes are needed in more or less all organizations. So workflow, how does it work? Well, workflows are based on different things. Workflows are based on the different rules and different states and processes that can be in the workflow route. But basically, when all these things are set and the products are have the statuses, you typically use it for querying out products with different type of status. So to use the workflow is a combination of the different steps you have in the workflow route, but also different type of queries you combine with areas of the products are placed in, the status of the products, and so on. Again, it's quite independent how you set it up, and workflows will typically also be depending on what type of product are you working with. Some products have maybe a couple of steps to be enriched or be finished, more technical products maybe, and then you can have more simple products that maybe just have a few steps to be finalized and approved and be ready to line to the channel. So let's take a look at it. I'll log into my demo system, and I started in my PIM area. The first thing I will see here is my dashboard. And basically, if you look closer into it, these informations are already based on workflow states. I have 55 products waiting for translation. Again, it's just a workflow state on the products, on the 55 products. I also have 27 products waiting for marketing. Again, it's one of the processes the product has to go through. We have our list here saying newly arrived products. We also have a counter down here saying that there are 10 new products arrived into the PIM system. So somebody maybe have to be aware of that and go in and make their work on it. So already in the dashboard, we use the workflow states to indicate where how many products are waiting for translation, which products are newly arrived, and so on. Now, if we go into the query area, I have made some example of queries, and if I go in on below the workflow area, I have these 4 states saying newly arrived products, ready for technical details, ready for product manager for closing, and ready for marketing. Now, if I select this one, I then get a list of all products that are newly arrived to the PIM system and waiting for somebody to go in and take action on it. So I have 10 products here, and if I go into the final one, the scanton date X560, I can make a check on it. Remember, it's in the states newly arrived products. So what I maybe have to do in my process is maybe just to verify, do I have a supplier item number? Do I have an EN number? Do I have a price? Do we have a usual name? And so on. Maybe just a few things you have to check. And if it's okay, I can then say, this product is arrived correct with the correct informations. I change my workflow state to ready for enriched technical details, save it, and close it. Then you see my product disappear from here. So it's not in my list anymore. I only have 9 products back in my list. Now, if I now simulate that I'm the technical guy that have to work in, I have a login name with PIM Technical, I sign in, you will see that I'm only allowed to go into my PIM area. I can click on it, and I may have my own queries, and one of my queries is saying waiting field technical fields for bikes. I click on it, and what you see down here is just the product. I have switched from newly arrived products into my technical, ready for technical enrichment. Then I can go in, start to integrate or enrich with technical details. It could be Shimano, and we also have cassette from Shimano, we have crankset Shimano, and so on down here. When I'm finished with enrichment of the technical details, I could go in and verify it and say, okay, it's finished now. I send it to the next step. I go into my workflow states and saying, this one is now ready for the marketing. They maybe have to put in some of the detailed text or the teaser text or whatever marketing related fields. So I place it here for ready for marketing. Save it, close it, and it's gone from my area. Then of course I could have simulated a marketing person logging in and see that it's coming into their baskets, but I will go back to my administrator user and just go in and say ready for marketing, and down here you then see that there's my product waiting. And in this setup of my query, I have make my teaser text, my description fields, and all fields that relate to the marketing job is visible in this query. So I can just start playing around with these contents, type it in, and what I need to do, when I'm finished, I could go in and say, now it's ready for approval. Or if I do not need the approval to the organization, I maybe could say ready for publishing. Then it will be ready for the channel or the brand managers to publish it to the right channels. So basically, this is what the workflow system are doing. It's helping to bring the products from one process to the next process and be in fully control of where are the products, who are going to make the next enrichment on the product, and so on and so on. There are no limitation of how many states you can have in there, and there will be different type of, you can make different type of workflow routes depending on what products you are working with. Now, how do we set these things up? We have in our settings an area below PIM called workflow. And in this workflow settings, you can define the different workflow groups. Again, if there are different type of products, in this case we have bikes, we have clothing, we have assortments and so on, accessories, then we have probably different type of workflows. Again, it's typically a quite different workflow for handling bikes with probably a lot of technical enrichment, and handling clothing is typically not following the same type of workflow. So when we go in and have this group, we can then define the different states on the workflows, which steps should go to where. Now let's take a look at that. Again, I'm logged in as the administrator. I go to my settings area, into PIM, and the workflow. As you can see on my system, I have two groups of workflows. I have one for bikes and one for clothing. I choose the one with bikes, and you can see I have these 6 states on my system. I have the newly arrived products. That was where I started with my workflow when I showed that. Then I have ready for enrichment technical details, ready for product manager, ready for marketing, ready for approval, and ready for publishing. If I need a new state, I can just press add, and then I can say I make a webinar state, and the webinar state are possible to redirect or to put it into a route or processes route to these 2 areas. Save and close. And then I have made a new state in my workflow route. So if I go back to my product, go to my bikes, let's find a new product. Then we'll see my webinar state is in here. So the state will automatically be available in the list for the particular groups of states. So that's the way you can set it up, and you can define your own group of workflow states and define how they should be rated to each other in the states. You can see it ready for enriched technical details. When I'm on the state ready for technical details, I can go back or set the product back to the newly arrived products, or I can move it forward to my product manager or to the marketing. So that's the route you can define for each state. So this is how we can set up the different states in the workflow group, but we can also send a notification when a product comes into a new state. So basically in our workflow state, where we define our workflow state, it's possible for us to set a state notification. So I can go in, I'm going to set up in my setting area, workflows, take the bikes again, this ready for enriched technical details. So each time I get a new product into this state, I will send a notification to this user with this subject on the email. Using this template, again, you can define and make your own templates depending on what kind of information you want to send to the user. We can send a sender email on and a sender name. So quite simple to set up the notification part of the workflow. Just go into the specific state, add one or more state notifications, define the users on it, and then each time a product will come into this state, they will be notified that there are new products in that state. That's it. Hopefully you get a little bit more feeling about what the workflow system are doing in Dynamic Web System. If you want to know more, you're welcome to visit our doc site or go into our websites and read more about it. You will also be possible for you to find the recording of this webinar on this URL. Other than, I hope to see you next time, the 22nd of March for the part 3, product properties fields, how we handle these things on products